In our last episode, we unmasked the second beast of Revelation 13 as Judeo-Christian Zionism. Its traditional function was to serve as the religious enabler of the first beast, the Western Empire. The second beast has the two horns of the sacred lamb, but has the voice of a dragon, which is religious apostasy. At a certain stage, however, the second beast becomes more than the religious enabler of the first beast and starts developing armies of its own. That's the critical turn. Welcome back to School of the Land. Revelation 13:12 says the second beast now exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence. This is describing what in geopolitics is called a proxy, a smaller power doing the bidding of a larger one. At this stage, the second beast is no longer just moral cover. It has taken up the sword. It commands its own military, intelligence, and financial forces. This is Judeo-Christian Zionism in its mature form, an ideological power that now wields its own material armies. With that authority, according to verse 13, it performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in the sight of everyone. In the modern age, this fire from heaven is the spectacle of aerial bombardment. It's shock and awe. It's the quintessential sign of a sovereignty that claims godlike power, the ability to judge from the sky, to deliver sudden destruction upon its enemies from above, as if calling down divine wrath. But fire from heaven cannot alone sustain a modern empire. Even the spectacle of shock and awe requires a justifying myth. As a proxy of the Anglo-American Empire, Zionism provided the perfect foothold in strategically important Western Asia in the early 20th century. Equally as important, the Zionist project provided the perfect cover story, the return of the Jews to the Holy Land as the necessary prerequisite for the return of Jesus himself. This narrative transformed geopolitical strategy into sacred duty. To secure the overwhelming financial support flowing from the people of the United States, the project had to forge an unprecedented consensus. It had to persuade them that Zionist success is not merely a Jewish interest, but a universal moral good. And it needed a dedicated, sophisticated apparatus to perform this delicate alchemy. Verse 14 says, "The second beast deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast." Its primary technique is deception, and verse 15 reveals that this image is given pneuma, spirit, breath. It is animated, it is living, it moves and speaks. This ancient metaphor awaited its technological fulfillment. The sequential inventions of moving pictures, television, and digital video provided the pneuma, first granting the image motion, then a voice, and finally an omnipresent, interactive life. This is the modern global media entertainment complex, the instrument of hegemonic perception, a system whose narratives are profoundly shaped by and often in complete alignment with the interests of the power structure. It becomes a mighty Wurlitzer, a vast media instrument capable of endless variation within a narrow underlying theme. A few hidden players, many keyboards, thousands of pipes. Voices may seem independent, even adversarial, but across platforms and ideologies, the melody resolves the same way, dictating who is friend, who is foe, which violence is righteous, which is terror, and whose suffering is worthy of our concern, and whose is not. Mass psychological manipulation has always been a core discipline of the dark craft of imperial control. Its primary function is to forge an emotional, non-rational consensus. Its core techniques, drawn from the universal playbook of psychological operations, include repetition and saturation, the constant, omnipresent reinforcement of core narratives until they become the very air that is breathed. Managed outrage, systematically directing public fury and moral indignation away from the manipulators themselves and toward convenient enemies. Induced helplessness. It promotes a pervasive sense of futility, the conviction that you can't fight City Hall, that resistance is futile, that the system is too complex or too powerful or even too evil to change, and that the architects of control are above the rules. This cultivates an impotent rage that paralyzes the will to resist and ensures complicity through despair. And while these techniques have been common tools of ruling classes throughout the ages to manufacture consent and suppress dissent, Zionism's unique position, a nationalist movement dependent on a diaspora and foreign superpower support, requires their relentless refinement and a subtlety that eludes rational criticism and aims for the more primitive parts of our brains. Yet each technological advance also presents new opportunities for independent voices of truth to be heard. And each time, the beast adapts, swallowing dissent, dulling its edge, or banishing it to the margins where it can no longer threaten its power. This living image demands worship that is submission, and those who refuse to bow to its manufactured narratives are slain, first figuratively in the court of public opinion, and when required, slain quite literally. So we see the mature form. The first beast provides the imperial structure in our day, the Anglo-American hegemonic order, and the second beast began as its religious facade of Judeo-Christianity, seized the sword of Zionism, became an empire within an empire, and now masters the image, a perceptual weapon that breathes the dragon's fire into the violence of both beasts, binding them together in a counterfeit covenant of imperial conquest. But an image, even a living one, is not the final lock. In the next episode, we see how the system moves from spectacular violence and manufactured perception to a form of control that reaches into the daily activity of nearly everyone everywhere, the money system. This is the mark of the beast, the ultimate lock on the cage of humanity. Until then, visit schooloftheland.com. See you next time.